the 144,000 out of the Israel, they're still here at this time. So those that I just mentioned that have the seal, a mark upon them, so that these locusts won't go after them. The 144,000 for sure are part of that. Then I'm trying to think in chapter, was it 6 that we were saying that was kind of put in there as a kind of an informational placeholder? I think the 144,000 were mentioned in there as well, but I don't know if it said anything about them having a seal.
I don't think so. Because, I mean, the sealing of God's ordinance, chapter 7.
7, that was it. Yeah, chapter 7 was placed between 6 and 8 as a informational chapter. So you think about this. What is that mark exactly? I don't know, but it's going to be something visible that they're going to be able to see and recognize, and as much as they would want to, do whatever they're planning on doing, that's going to be off limits. Pretty much like when Daniel was in the lion's den and God shut the mouths of the lions. You're going to do the same thing here. When Israel was in Egypt and the death angel came through, but they had the mark on the doorposts, so they passed them by. God is going to place a mark, physical, visible mark on his people. And this isn't the first time, or the only time rather I should say, that we're going to see this as we go on. There's other mention of God's people having a mark on them, or they're identified as belonging to God. So they're going to be off limits, but everybody else is fair game. It says when they get stung, they're not going to die, but they're going to be tormented 5 months. It says, as the torment of a scorpion. Have you ever seen anyone that had been stung by scorpions? Or probably pretty similar would be a poisonous snake bite. They swell up and kind of causes
Respiratory distress?
Yeah, hard to breathe and hallucinating. That was I was trying to say. They're the mind is just kind of goes crazy. Very painful. Feel like their body's on fire. I don't know what all of the symptoms are. Those are some that I can recall seeing. Being stung by a scorpion, or like I said,
they want to die. So
yeah, and then that's the last statement there of this. They shall seek death, but they shall not find it. They shall desire to die. They'll want to die. It's going to be that painful, that tormenting. It says, and death shall flee from them. They're not going to die, and that's going to last for 5 months.
Now, do you think that's a local thing, or is that going to be? I mean, if they're coming out of a pit, it's somewhere.
It's going to be worldwide.
Go wherever they go.
Yeah. There's.
Well, they have wings. They're like locusts.
Right. Exactly. So yes, they're going to come out like a cloud coming out of this pit, and they're just going to go everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't imagine. All right, let's go ahead and I'll read through his statements here to see if we get a little bit more info. It says, as the revelation of the fifth trumpet continues, the bottomless pit is opened and a gloomy murk of smoke fills the air, dissipating the luminous light of the sun from the earth. When the narrow beams of radiating sun rays again begin to dispel this darkness, unnatural locusts are seen coming out of the smoke, which are likened unto scorpions. They are commanded not to hurt the grass of the earth, or any green thing or any tree, but only men who do not have the seal of God in their foreheads. Assuming that the star is Satan himself in verse 1, making his descent to the lower regions of planet Earth, unlocking the prison house, letting this infernal hellish horde loose upon the human race, then there appears again the great contrast between good and evil, between defeat and victory. For it was Christ himself who descended first into the lower regions and unlocked the prison house of his saints, all of which came forth in power, honor, and peace to enter into the eternal reign. Now, in contrast, this fallen one unlocks the bottomless pit from which some wicked angelic creatures, whose objective will be to inflict torture upon the body, soul, and mind of those dwelling upon the earth. This locust army is described by many expositors as being symbolic, holding that neither the smoke nor the locust should be taken in any literal sense. A notorious migratory species called the Locusta migratoria of the old world gives some thought to those who adhere to the literal interpretation, as they would swarm in immense numbers, stripping all the vegetation from large areas. The plague was greatly feared in Old Testament times because it always would leave man and beast to die for lack of food. Such fear of the locust is very clearly illustrated in the personage of the Pharaoh of Egypt. I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now therefore forgive, I pray thee, my sin only this once, and entreat the Lord your God that he may take away from me this death only. A mediatorial prayer was offered up by Moses unto God, wherein the response from God came in the form of a strong west wind which blew the locusts into the Red Sea. The prophet Joel speaks in symbolic terms using the locust plague to illustrate the coming invasion upon Judah, where the land would be laid desolate by the king of Babylon. The fact that these are not ordinary locusts does not prove them to be none the less literal. These fiendish ones belong to the infernal regions of darkness below. This is in keeping with both New and Old Testament writers who make reference to the rebellious ones, who by the power of God are now kept in the particular places of confinement. The psalmist David makes note of a despairing place of confinement and refers to it as the pit. I become like them that go down into the pit. Isaiah speaks of the same place, calling it a prison. And they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and shall be shut up in the prison. The rich man died and found himself confined to a place called hell, with an impassable gulf or chasm gaping open, from whence he could not pass over. Peter makes note of hell and the angels which are bound there in chains of darkness. Also, Jude makes reference to the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness. John, the apocalyptic writer, calls to our attention a bottomless pit. The scriptures make reference to several places where the different rebellious ones are confined, namely Abyss, Sheol, Hades, Tartarus, Gehenna, and the lake of fire. These aforesaid beings, which come from the bottomless pit, without doubt belong to the world of evil spirits, who before their fall were true subjects of God. They have been placed in prison houses until the time appointed, when God will permit them to be loosed upon planet Earth for the purpose of fulfilling the divine plan. So think about that these aren't just a physical creature. They've been placed in this bottomless pit. For how long? We don't know. From whenever God had placed them there. Are they a form of the rebellious fallen angels that had been cast out of heaven? I don't know precisely, but there is a spiritual aspect to this.
It makes you wonder, though, if he created them
just for this?
to look that way in heaven, to be in heaven. I mean, if they were really cast out, did they look that way when they were in heaven?
No, and here's why I would say that. Sin corrupts and defiles and changes. Lucifer was once known as
Beautiful.
the most beautiful angel there was, angel of light.
Yeah.
But once he was cast out,
Yeah.
that was completely changed.
Pretty no more, is he?
Exactly. So that could be the same with these. You think of, we know there's created beings, angelic type beings that aren't like angels like we normally picture an angel, the cherubim and the seraphim and those beings that are still in heaven. Well, think of them, had they been cast out at this time as well, what would they look like at this point? So, we think, well, if these are fallen angels, these sound like creatures, not angels. Well, there were and are created creatures in heaven right now. So these could also be ones that were one time in heaven, and if they sided, with Satan during a rebellion, they would have been cast out, and and we're going to get to a place where it specifically says, demons. The same idea as this, but okay, consider these being, some type of an angelic creature that has been cast out. When did that take place that they were cast out? We don't know. Thousands upon thousands and thousands of years.
It would be the same casting out when Satan was cast out.
Right. So when was that? We don't know.
Pit for him already. So
What's that?
He made the pit for him already. The pit was ready for him. If they were cast out when Satan was.
Right. So that's what I'm getting to. So they've been locked in this pit ever since then. And now they're being loosed to release whatever fury they've built up for thousands of years on mankind.
There's enough loose right now, man.
Nothing. We literally cannot comprehend the kind of evil that is going to be poured out upon this earth during this time. Can't comprehend it. So these
I don't want to.
no, you don't. So these creatures locked away in a pit all of this time, finally let go.
They're mad.
Yeah, and their desire to eat or whatever, and God says you can't have any of that.
Right.
But
they can't kill humans either. So.
Can't kill them, but all they can do. Okay, think if they've been in this pit and they've not been able to experience anything for all of this time. Again, the mentality of anger and fury, and that they're going to have, and the only thing they can do is to sting and harm men. What kind of a passion for that do you think they're going to have? Unbelievable.
Doesn't the scorpion lose its stinger though when it stings you?
I don't think these will. I don't.
Scorpions don't.
I was gonna say I don't know that scorpions do. It's not like a bee.
Okay.
Yeah.
But think of this, okay, it talks about that no one wished to die and can't.
Can't die. Yeah.
So, like I used to think before, okay, they got stung once and then were sick for by that time. It's like, yeah, no, what you're saying, yeah, they're gonna just keep on.
I kind of picture it like this. Think of being in a coma, but completely conscious. You're aware, but you can't respond or do anything, and you're experiencing all of these conditions.
I don't know. When I had my kidney stone, I asked Kenny to shoot me then. So, I can't imagine.
I just picture in my head like sci-fi movie with these big locusts that
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
Oh.
Yeah.
It's gonna be beyond anything man has been able to imagine. And we've seen some pretty far out stuff.
Okay, so you think about Ezekiel talking about the wheel within a wheel and the eyes all around about, and that's
It's like, yeah, what?
when that's in heaven. Okay, so now picture this thing that's been in pit for.
Yep.
I've heard people say that, you know, those UFO sightings were those angels, you know, up in the heavens that they see.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Let's see here. All right, so, well, here we're going to get further description of these locusts. So they're going to be even more far out than what we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Verses 7 through 11. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. And on their heads were as it were crowns like gold. And their faces were as the faces of men. So, you know, their shapes are going to be like horses. So I have to assume similar in size. So think of something that large flying. Let's see. And they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. Now, as you start putting this together, I start seeing just what we've been talking about.
You know they want to eat us.
Oh yeah, you know,
Eat them, not us.
a heavenly creature that, you know, was probably magnificent at one time, but because of the fall of sin and being locked away in this pit for who knows how long, this is the deformity, I guess. You know, I don't know how to say it.
I'd like to see if somebody's actually tried to draw a picture of what this would look like.
I've seen, and I can't recall what it was. There was a movie one time about the tribulation period, and they had these type of creatures in there, and it was pretty wild looking.
When I see them, they're like small.
Yeah.
The size of a locust, but with that description.
Oh, okay.
Really.
Well, they have mythological creatures that are man and horse. Half man, half horse, something.
Oh, I know what you're. Yeah.
Mythological stuff.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be a whole lot more far-fetched than that, even.
Yeah.
Let's see. They had breastplates, as it were, breastplates of iron. And the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. So think of the buzz. That's another thing. If you've ever, you know, been near or heard recordings of locusts as they're going through the, well, everybody's heard cicadas.
Right.
Multiply. Okay, again, a bug this big or whatever. Think of thousands, or I don't know how many of these things the size of a horse. What do you think that sound's going to be like?
Terrifying.
Yeah. Well, if it's going to be like, if one is going to be like the sound of many horses or chariots going into battle.
And with the breastplates like that, they probably can't be killed.
Exactly. I was going to go there. Not that they would be able to anyways, but they're just because of the, you know, what they are. They're a spiritual creature. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. All right, let's get into his description here. The descriptive quality and characteristic of this host makes it clear that they are not ordinary locusts, but belong to a horde of demons who occupy the bottomless pit. These satanic invaders are the rulers of darkness, and upon being released, bring such unprecedented horror as this world has never known. On each of their infernal heads sits a crown like unto gold. Their physical appearance, with such distinct outward visible description, immediately implies to the mind an apprehensive fear of oncoming evil. Their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. These physical parts of the locust should not be allegorically or symbolically interpreted, meaning it should be taken literal, as some have attempted to do, such as that the faces of men suggest the intelligence of men who are falsely assuming great humanitarian methods, but in reality show no mercy at all. Also, the hair as the hair of women has been thought by some to represent the professing church in complete apostasy. This assumption stems from the belief that Mary wiping Christ's feet with her hair is the true type and holiness of the church.
What?
Yeah.
I think that's a stretch.
Well, and I was just getting ready to say, this is where, you've heard me repeat over and over again, and this is why. That you should always, always, always take the Bible as literal, except in the instances where it's quite obvious that symbolism is being implied or used. And here's why, just like with these things. Somebody has simply come up with this idea and tried to apply something to it to make it make sense as to, this can't be literal because it's so,
Far-fetched.
yeah, so great or incredible to try to think of something like that really happening that they force symbolism on it, and there's no biblical reference for any of these things that here that they're trying to apply. We think that this could be this. Well, yeah, it could be a toad too. I mean, you have just as much reason to apply that logic as you do this other logic that they're trying to apply. That's all it does is create a mess. Lions' teeth are said to connote a tearing or inflicting upon the Jewish race. The entire continuity of these creatures in appearance is considered to be a great military invasion from an atheistic land.
Oh, man.
Yeah. That the locusts are to be taken in the literal sense is a more fitting interpretation for the following reasons. Because it makes sense. They have a king over them, and it is commanded that they should not hurt green vegetation, but only those who have not the seal of God in their foreheads, proving that they are literal beings and should not be considered a symbol. This prison house, which is geographically located in the lower parts of the earth, will be opened, and evil spirits will be released to inflict torment upon mankind. Their leader, which in the Hebrew and Greek simply means destroyer, is also called the angel of the bottomless pit. A sixfold command is given to these locusts, namely, not to hurt the grass, trees, or any green thing, not to kill men, not to hurt the 144,000 Jews, but to hurt all other men. Isaiah speaks of this wicked angelic host, and they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and shall be shut up in the prison, and after many days shall they be visited. Also the prophet Joel gives an additional account. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. There hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. Their faculty and capacity of understanding, the outward features, and they're being jurisdictionally restrained, prove these locusts to be intelligent beings from the wicked spirit world, which are reserved in darkness until their appointed time, all of which is under the complete direction of Almighty God.
Okay, I got a quick question, because I wasn't here for the first part. So when it's talking about that they weren't allowed to hurt the 144,000 Jews.
Right.
So you know that there'll be others here during this time that have given their lives to Christ. So are they also protected, or is it just the Jews that are still protected?
The only mention that I'm aware of people receiving a seal upon them are the 144,000. So even those that are here, and this goes back to the same thing that applies even now, that there's consequences to rejecting God, to sin. So if I've done things to destroy my body for my whole life, my liver's trashed, my heart's trashed, whatever. I can come to God and receive forgiveness, but that damage, those consequences, they still exist. Can God heal that? He can. Is He always going to? Not always. That's just simply how it is. So these people that are here at this time, even though at this point they, through what they see and witness, may have turned their hearts over to God, but you know what? They're here because they initially rebelled and rejected God. That's why they're here. So to say that they're exempt at this point from all of the judgment that's coming out on sin, no, you placed yourself in this position. So I can't say that.
Okay, no, that was just, I never looked at it like that or thought about it other than just not with that.
Right. So the only ones that I'm aware of that's mentioned through this that have that seal upon them are the 144,000. Anybody else? Anybody want to be here?
But even those that, and I think we're past the point of those repenting and coming back to God, but the ones that did before this ended up being martyred, right?
Well, not necessarily all of them.
Yeah.
Probably most of them.
Yeah.
Because those that refuse to worship the Antichrist and follow
They're going to be killed anyway.
they're going to be, some are going to go in hiding, and some quite possibly will be successful at that. Not many, but then again, they're going to be subject to this stuff.
So you think, okay, if the ones that are going to accept God and it's done and over with, your mind says, well, why doesn't God just be done with it? But it is about judgment.
It is about judgment.
It is about showing man who God is.
Yep.
So.
And again, the numbers are going to be small, but there still may be some that will continue to turn. Yeah. Yep. Let's see how much is in the next part here. All right, let's go ahead. I think maybe we can do the next section here. The sixth trumpet, the second woe. Yeah, remember at the end of the sixth seal?
Yeah.
Or seven? I forget now.
Woes.
Yeah. So we've just come through one.
Whoa.
Two more to go. Yeah. Whoa, that's right. Two more to come. All right, verses 12 through 15. One woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. And the sixth angel sounded, And I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before God, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men. I think he may go into this, so I'm not going to say too much other than people try to take that, the hour and a day and a month and a year, and try to apply a time period out of that. It's simply stating for this specific time. That's what that is. So, all right, we had all of these angelic beings. I hesitate to call them that because they're no longer that. But at one time were angelic beings that have been locked up in this pit, and then now they're these locust, horse, scorpion, woman creatures. try to lump it all in there. Yeah, I don't know. So they've been loosed, and we talked about their fury. But then now we have four angels, and specifically,
And he's calling them angels.
because they were. They were at one time. Just like Lucifer was an angel. So we have a hierarchy of the created beings in heaven in terms of authority, power, intellect. Okay? Angels being at the top of that hierarchy. The cherubim and the seraphim, they're also angelic beings, but they're more creature-like, where Lucifer and other angels are more human type. That's probably not the right description, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. So these four angels that are described here would be in comparison to the locust creatures that we just got done talking about, more powerful, more have a greater intellect. They're thinkers. They're not just creating for a function, or like the locust type creatures were. But they also, from whenever they were cast out, and it says in the river Euphrates. I mean, think about that. Somewhere along wherever the river Euphrates is running right now is a location sealed up by God. It's there. It exists. That these beings are being held. And same thing. Thousands of years? I don't know how long they're going to be loosed.
Have you seen any of the stuff in the news lately about the Euphrates draining out?
That's been going on for quite some time.
They're
It's
all kinds of crazy stuff.
In it?
Oh man!
I bet. It's been gradually for years drying up.
Yeah, drying up.
And it's also mentioned in the Bible to that final battle that's going to take place for those armies to come out of the area that's described for them to come out. The river Euphrates would have to dry up in order for that to take place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's happening.
Sure is.
All right, let's read his information here. The first woe has passed, only to proceed into the second and then the third of the grievous and great calamities described, after which will conclude the time of the trumpet judgments. Of the some 100 times the word woe is mentioned in the Bible, it without exception denotes and predicts grievous distress, affliction, and trouble upon the ungodly, which exposes the true character of Satan and reveals the weakness and total incapability of mankind to save himself. It is during this particular time that man will desire to die and death will flee from him. Here again, and for the last time recorded in the Apocalypse, there is a view of the golden altar which is before the throne of God. It was from under this altar that the travailing prayers of the martyred saints of the Great Tribulation period were heard. Their cry was, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth?" It seems that these three woe judgments are a direct answer to these prayers. Also, it is from this altar of incense that Christ in his office work as the great high priest offers up the prayers of all saints before the throne of God the Father. As the sixth angel sounds the trumpet, a voice is heard coming out from the four horns of the altar, which perhaps suggests the sovereignty and also the judicial government of God. At this authoritative sound of command, 4 demonic generals are loosed from the great river Euphrates. The fact that these angels are bound proves that they are of the fallen order. Otherwise, their free moral agency would have permitted them to enjoy complete freedom. As is the case of all creation, there is a personal choice which is not simply determined by divine force. The free choice, however, becomes subjected to the theocratic law of the universe, in which God himself is recognized as the supreme civil ruler. So let's see here. What is it saying? Loosed. Okay. Just had a thought or something that was back in that other scripture. As rebels, these 4 angels have somewhere in time past become subjected to divine response and judgment. They are literally bound in the great river Euphrates, reserved under divine control for an appointed time, a certain time, day, month, and year. This does not designate the time duration of their activity, but rather speaks of a designated time, being a certain hour and a certain day and a certain month and a certain year. There are many such instances where God holds in bondage of servitude particular rebels who have diverted themselves by turning from the course of holy order. For example, the holy angels which kept not their first estate, recorded in Jude 6. Also, the Apostle Peter speaks of certain angels who sinned and were cast down to hell and delivered into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. These particular places of confinement are referred to in the scriptures as Sheol, Hades, Tartarus, Gehenna, pit, and the lake of fire. It is said of these 4 angels that they were prepared for a particular time to slay the third part of men. So here we have another third. I've lost track now. Is this perhaps the 3rd time we've seen a third part of mankind?
Ain't got many left.
Going to be destroyed? Exactly. So however many that were here after war and famine and everything else, when God sends out judgment and says a third are going to die from the poisoned waters or whatever the case was, then that takes it down pretty quick. Then you chop away a third of that, and then now here these 4 angels are given permission to kill a third of that. Also notice this, I don't know if he mentions this or not. They're given a power to kill a third of men. Doesn't say how.
Right.
I can't even start to comprehend what that's going to be. These 4 angels of a higher intellect and power and ability than the creatures the locust creatures, they've been bound, chained up for thousands of years somewhere in the river Euphrates, are now loosed and said, okay, you can kill a third of men, and not told how to go about it. We really have no understanding of what this is going to
And
be
only
like.
4 of them are gonna do it. Not a horde,
It's-
not a big,
And that's
you know,
it's going to be more than enough. Like I said, these are a higher order of angelic beings than what we've been seeing so far. They would be along the lines of Satan, maybe not quite that, because he was the highest order. It is said of these 4 angels that they were prepared for a particular time to slay the third part of men. The disposal of 1/3 of the entire world population is one of the most devastating acts recorded in the annals of human history. This judgment, along with the 4th seal judgment, will abolish approximately half the world population. And the end-time battle of Armageddon hasn't even begun. The world's greatest ethical philanthropists, who are constantly involving themselves with the interests of mankind, have seemingly overlooked what God says about the ultimate end of the human race. Only those who are faithfully advocating the truth of the theological aspect of humanitarian needs are aware that only Christ can save the human race from total destruction. All right, that's like I said. Well, we're gonna get to the next part. Is just throws it over the top. We'll save that for next week. But we've mentioned it leading into this, and hopefully we're seeing this. The evil that is going to be present here in this world during this time is beyond what any of us could even think to imagine. Any other questions before we?
well, you know, they're trying to, now they're saying that, you know, there's a post-COVID pneumonia going around. So, and the evil behind COVID is pretty, I mean, massive, you know, death and sickness and destruction of it. And so the 4 angels, they could be, who knows what they can divide to wipe out another third of the
Oh, yeah.
population, you know.
Whatever it is, it ain't going to be pretty.
I mean,
It's going to be horrific.
it's the evil has showed itself
Yeah.
like lightweight right now.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? It's lightweight, what we see right now.
And as Christians, our eyes should be open, and it alarms me at the Christians that aren't, and they just overlook this as just part of whatever. All of these things that are happening, and we'll probably get kicked off of Facebook here, but COVID and all of that, it's all planned. Oh, the government's planning it? No, they're just instruments. There literally is, and it sounds cliche or whatever, but it's reality. Evil's behind this.
Oh, yeah.
Satanic Antichrist forces are behind. All of these things are planned. It is to manipulate people and to condition them to obey what they're told to do. And this isn't just about government.
No, the economy collapsing, all that stuff is putting you in their pocket.
Yep. And that's all part of Satan's agenda.
Yes.
To manipulate mankind so that when he's ready to spring forth the real trap, everybody's already been conditioned for it, that it's like, yeah, okay, no big deal, we're used to this. We gotta wake up.
There's that verse, I think it's in Ephesians, where it says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against
principalities.
rulers of darkness in high places.
Yep.
And like people don't, when you start going down that rabbit hole, like with the COVID, I mean, the people running the world and the government that are legitimately Satanists.
Yes.
Like they are.
And that's what I'm saying. Okay, we start going to the different levels. Oh, it's our government. Well, then you start digging deeper, and you realize that you know what, they're being controlled by the money, the world billionaires. And okay, who's controlling them? Is there another person? Maybe. Well, it keeps going beyond that. Satan is behind all of
And
it.
it's getting to the point where they don't even hide it anymore. Like
Yeah.
I watch it, like you see on like the Grammys that they had, just rife with Satanism, and
Yep.
all over the place, on buildings, on money, on company logos. I mean, it's
It's the truth.
Yep.
Man's not smart enough to come up with a plan like that on their own, so.
No, they're just pawns.
Yeah.
Just pawns. Yep. That's man. I almost hate saying it because it's just something that's said all the time, and it just doesn't hardly seem to carry any weight anymore. But the end times they're upon us. Time is short. We really don't have an understanding of how short time is. All of this stuff that we're seeing, and we've done the Revelation study. I have, anyways, several times. It has never hit home or been so relevant as what it is right now.
It's today, yeah.
Yep. All right. If there's no other questions, we'll stop there.
I made the comment at the beginning, they talking about, the school shootings and all these mass shootings and all they keep bringing, and they stand and say, they need to get the guns out of school. And I'm like, wait, you need to get Jesus back in school.
There you go.
It ain't about the guns. Get Jesus back in school.
Right.
Get Jesus back in your home. Get Jesus back in your car.
Back in the families and back in the communities, and yep. Well, like I said, it's sad to say, I remember I've had people get angry with me for saying, pray for this, nation to turn around, and yes, we should pray for our government officials and all of that. That's we're called to do that.
Scripture.
But here's the reality: this nation ain't turning around. People don't want to hear that. Oh, you pray for them because there's hope for it. If you really believe what we're talking about right now and what we're studying, we're past that time. The world is not, at this point in time, not going to turn around. It's going to continue down the path that we see it in, towards destruction.
We can prophesy. It's going to. Things have to be in place.
That's exactly why I say that. God said this was going to happen, and here it is. So, yes, pray for people, but to pray to say that this is going to turn around, it's not. It's not. All right, I'm sorry. All right, we're at the end of 9, so I need to make sure I print 10 for next time. All right. I'll remember all the different prayer requests and those that are sick and all that's going on here as we close in prayer, and just ask the Lord to watch over us and keep us in these times.
Amen.
We gotta hold on to what we know is true and right, and stand for it at all costs. All right, let's pray together. Lord, we just thank you once again for this time to be able to come together and study your word. Lord, I thank you for each and every one that's come here tonight, Lord, to hear your word.
Father, do more than we can ever do.
Your Spirit has placed this upon our hearts. Let us realize, Lord, how close the end is, Father, to busy
those
while
that
we
are
have the opportunity
lost,
to reach
those that don't
those
know you,
that
those
nobody
that are
would have
struggling,
to
those that are
experience
trying to
these
call
things
on
we've
you, Lord, to
been
reach them
talking
out
about.
with your word.
Lord, there's a way out,
The
and it's
Spirit of
through
God, lead
you.
us and guide us,
Help
Father.
eyes
We
to be
thank you,
open
Lord,
and
for
hearts to be
empowering us,
changed, Lord.
Lord.
Use
And
us
Lord,
for
we
your
pray for those.
glory.
We pray for
Just
all
ask that you go
those,
with
Lord.
each
We
and every
do
one of
lift
us
up
now.